Greetings, dear ones. It is Friday, March 4th, 2022, and this is another edition of Midday Meditations for and on behalf of Ukraine and the world. The situation is, as you may or may not know, getting even worse at this point. And these meditations have had a focus or a theme each day, different based on the current collective consciousness, kind of the theme that is rolling through, and the helpers each day that have stepped forward. So, kind of an overall theme emerges from what is currently happening, what people are currently feeling, and feeling being the key word. Yesterday's focus was just that, on feeling, because so many of us who are sensitives find it difficult to actually watch what's going on and still be able to hold our energy fields in an integrity space. And I'm here to invite you to actually feel, because the tendency is to create barriers or to shield oneself or to become numb or just let the feeling flow through. And from the perspective of this and the ancients that have been advising for many decades on the evolutionary process of this planet, they're encouraging us all to actually feel the emotions that are coming up and follow them through to our own personal experience of an aspect of what is occurring on the global stage, so that in our own processing of our personal experience of that characteristic or that dynamic or that pattern or that action, behavior, or experience, then we are actually changing the world. We can think about it, we can vision, we can pray, all of which are beneficial, but to really change the world, to change human nature, which is what is determining our world, then we must each individually change to the extent that we can and have the capacity or the help or the guidance for. So today, we are going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to actually try to share the screen in just a moment, because as is said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is not to elicit pain or tears or sympathy, but to assist us all in feeling not only what's occurring, but again, the same sensations of, in this case, a lot of the photos that are coming forth are people fleeing. And, you know, if you can imagine, as I invited everyone to yesterday, you know, think of your nearest city, or it doesn't even have to be a large city. Kiev is a very large city, but there are many different towns and cities being attacked. And for those of us, for example, my nearest city is across the river here in Philadelphia. And if Philadelphia were attacked and bombed and shelled, certainly my little town, my area would be affected, would be bombed also. I would have to leave. And, you know, we say that very easily, but to actually consider the fact that you'd have to grab, like I'd have to grab my kitty and put him in a carrier, which is very, very challenging for him. Um, he's large and the carriers are not quite that large, and grab as much food as I had on the shelves for him, for me, any cash, some change of clothing, precious items, throw them in literally a backpack and try any which way you can to get out of town. If you have cars, well, gas will only go so far. Trains, buses, to the nearest, I would be going to Canada, I guess. Just imagine, I want you to really feel into what is being experienced. This is not some historic event from long ago, although it does look like it. World War II in many ways. And I want you to really allow yourself, as I'm showing these photos and bringing in some of the helpers for today, to, again, this isn't about eliciting pain or anguish in you, or sympathy, because sympathy just is like pity. It doesn't go really very far. But what you can do is imagine yourself having to flee and what that would feel like, and your children, and your, having to leave your husbands and sons and brothers to fight with almost sticks and stones compared to what Putin is bringing in. And the worry, having to say goodbye to them, having to not know what is going to happen to one or the other of the parties in this case. And, to know that your apartment building was completely demolished, or, your home is going to be blown up. This is what is happening every single day in this situation. It happens around the world as well, but this one is what's presenting itself to give us an opportunity to change our personal experiences and to change history, to change the way things have been. And when we do that by visualizing or thinking, it's a very, very long process. Could take hundreds of years for us to do these changes that are being demanded at this point, because our modern day technology and ability with weapons, etc., is, including nuclear, is not long term. It doesn't take a long time for great damage to be done very, very quickly. So that means amplifying the power of our ability to change who we are as a people, who we are as a planet. In other words, rewriting the future, knowing that the past does not have to determine the future. And that really takes, again, a lot of emotional feeling, because that's where the energy is. The mind is very limited as far as I said, truly affecting change rapidly, quickly, dramatically, but emotions can. So as I show you these pictures, again, please do not go into sympathy, pity alone, but allow yourself to feel perhaps when you were shut out, when you were feeling in danger physically, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually or energetically. Certainly we all experience that as children, because we have no power, we have no control over our world, and we are at the mercy of those adults around us. So oftentimes we have had to flee from what is being experienced into our inner world by going very, very internally, or cutting off the sources of the disconnect, the dissonance between what you feel should be occurring and what is occurring. And in that process, we have to cut off our own inner knowing, our own intuitive guidance. And that really makes us abandon ourselves. It makes us leave our true self. So that's what I am inviting you to experience and to what is in the container today. And we have amazing beings helping us, animal beings that represent protection, the raccoon, who is always, they're always watching out for one another. And the crocodile throughout history is inviting us to really marshal our forces. And again, this is not about going against even Putin and what he's doing, because that just perpetuates the separation, and it perpetuates the battling, and it perpetuates the back and forth, good and bad, dark and light, etc. Versus really feeling into your experience of either being left or having to leave yourself, or so often we leave our bodies as children and it becomes habitual, and we are disconnected from our experience, our internal experience, and disconnected from the earth itself. And so we are having to leave ourselves in that way as well. And so the other very, very strong, it's actually a natural force in many ways, but it is an integral and permanent, so to speak, fixture of this 3D reality, and that is time. But those of you who have experienced deep energetics, or certainly anyone who has been in sessions with me, you know that time can be bent. Time can be much more fluid than it seemingly appears to be. And it just occurs to me that this happens to be the weekend that we are going to be setting our clocks back. So not surprising that time is showing up, and the ability to move time in a very forceful way, a very powerful way through our emotions to change the blueprints of our world, your personal world and our world. So what I'm going to do now, and again, if you feel you are too sensitive to be able to see these things, then just please close your eyes. They're not horrific, but they are of people truly experiencing having to leave and abandon their homes. And I'm going to show the picture and read the caption underneath. That obviously was a man crying over the dead body of a relative or a loved one in some way. This says it all, a woman having to leave and her last gesture to a loved one. It says, a woman bids a man goodbye after boarding a Lviv-bound train in Kyiv, Ukraine. And this was yesterday, March 3rd. Everyone has to leave to safety. Again, feel that child. Feel her energy field if you're capable of doing so. Her name is Zlata. She's 3 years old, and she is fleeing the conflict from neighboring Ukraine with her face painted in the colors of the Ukrainian flag. She stands at the Romanian-Ukrainian border in Siret, Romania. These are firefighters staying to try to put out some of the fires that the bombs are creating. Again, you can see something as everyday as an ad for what's obviously a hairdresser. And in the background, these firefighters desperately attempting to hose down a burning building after it was bombed. And a little girl clinging to what may be her daddy before boarding a train to leave the country. And obviously her other relatives there as well. So tiny. This is Natalia, 57, cries as she says goodbye to her daughter and grandson on a train to Lviv at Kiev station in Ukraine. She's staying for whatever reason, perhaps to fight, perhaps to help, perhaps to aid in medical ways. And this young man is 15 years old. His name is Artyom, and he was wounded by shelling, and he lies in a car waiting to be able to be moved to a maternity hospital, which has been converted into a medical hospital. These are people who have arrived, getting off a train, originating in Ukraine as it arrives in Poland, safe with their lives and glad, very grateful that a country has taken them in. This is a girl comforting her cat before a departure of a train bound to Poland from Ukraine. I can't even imagine being on a train with my kitty and not knowing what's going to happen. And these are refugees fleeing the conflict from neighboring Ukraine, exit a tent at the Romanian-Ukrainian border in Siret, Romania. And please remember, you can see the snowflakes. It is as cold as it is here on the East Coast or in the Midwest right now. And there is no heat, there is no walls. And yes, what does one do with the handicapped? How do we move them? A refugee fleeing the conflict from neighboring Ukraine talks to police officers at the Romanian-Ukrainian border in Siret, Romania. Again, look at the snow and the cold that everyone has to tolerate. People fleeing Ukraine register for a bus which will take them to Germany at this train station in Poland. That is a dummy, that is a CPR training dummy that Ukrainians are receiving training. And again, this is just everyday people having to come up with extraordinary ways to survive and help one another and fight for their way of life, for their very life, but for their way of life. And another woman who, and these are paramedics, treating an elderly woman wounded by shelling before transferring her to the maternity hospital that's been converted into a medical hospital. Little children, all bundled up because this is a carriage of an emergency evacuation train traveling from Ukraine to Poland, and there is no heating. They're grabbing anything and everything they can. And these are men trying to wrap up statues so they won't be so damaged from a very old and famous cathedral. A soldier, again, people being rescued, paramedics. And this is a soldier that's been wounded, and now he's training ordinary, everyday men how to use weapons to protect their homes and their land. And these are displaced people getting on online to get on the train to Poland. The little girl, she's got her little backpack and stuffed toy and not much else. And again, I do not share these with you to bring you pain or sadness, but instead to continue to feel into yourself, imagining how you want the world to be, but moreover, feeling into the way you want the world to be. Because we can think about it, we can talk about it, but and visioning, as I said, is wonderful, but it's a very time consuming. It takes a long time when you can literally feel the experience of having to abandon something that you love, or someone that you love, or perhaps how you have abandoned yourself, whether energetically leaving your body, or in other cases, abandoning your true inner self, your authentic knowing guidance. And when you feel into that and the desire and the longing for it to be different, you are actually changing any future possibility of such an insane, it seems at this stage of the game with our technology, that there is such a battle going on, and that one country can simply walk in and take over another. So please allow the helpers and the impetus of your own feelings for you to sit deeply in your creation energetics. You don't even have to know what that means. You don't have to know what flavor of creation energetics you use. Although if you would like to, please contact me and we'll set up a time when we can talk about you learning how to do that. And in the upcoming 3-month program, Personal and Planetary Redesign, that is one of the things that you will do. You will learn where you source from, where you're connected to your particular creation energetics, so that you are able to more effectively use them for the evolution of this planet and for your own life. So I'll leave you with that today, and I will be doing this tomorrow again at 12:30, but we are going to be doing much more of a practice, much more of a drop-in. Today was to invite you to feel into your own experience and the desire of how you want your experience, whether it's reconnection with your internal knowing, whether it is the feeling of being able to, or the actual act of being able to allow your energy field to come down and in your body so that you are presencing yourself more here. Those are all the healing answers to what you've experienced. And as you sit in that deeply, you are literally changing what's going on in Ukraine, because you are standing in and for yourself and allowing the idea, the ancient, the old historic idea of just because I'm stronger than you, I can take what I want and do what I want with you. That is no longer feasible in our world. It is no longer, it's almost bordering on the ridiculous. So know that you are changing deeply this world very, very quickly and powerfully when you feel into your own emotional pieces and how you would like them to be redesigned. And please contact me for information on the upcoming program starting in March, April, and May. It will run, and you will be a different person by the end of it. In the meantime, know that it is with all honor, gratitude, and love for your presence here on the planet that I bid you adieu.